Welcome, everyone. Tonight we have a really, really special class. We're going to talk about the Parsha. We're going to talk about an incredible sign that was said about Mashiach 200 and so about 300 years ago, was prophetically predicted about the time of Moshiach's arrival. And we are going to talk about the current state of affairs in the world. Primarily, we're going to focus on the significance of DOGE, which is rattling the United States of America and rattling the world, and its connection to Mashiach. The big question of today's title is DOGE and Mashiach, is it a match made in heaven? Let's see. Are they married to each other, DOGE and Mashiach? But is it made in heaven? Perhaps not. Let us see. There's a little what we call a riddle over here by the time we conclude today's class. But it's going to be, I believe, a fascinating discussion. So tighten your seatbelts because we're going to have a good ride today. Bezrat Hashem. I'm excited. Any case, what's going on? What's going on is that the technology in the world is moving at an incredible pace. Someone sent me last week an interview that was done in the White House between Senator Ted Cruz from Texas, and he was interviewing Elon Musk. I forgot Ted Cruz, the name of his, he has a podcast. I don't remember its name, but it's very easy to find Ted Cruz's podcast. Look it up. And he does an interview with Elon Musk. And this was done about 7 days ago. I saw it yesterday on YouTube. It said 6 days before. So it must have been about a week ago. He's interviewing him about DOGE and all this stuff. And we know that Elon Musk is under fire and Tesla is being targeted all over. And people are going crazy about what Elon Musk is doing. And some people are incredibly excited about it. And others are frantically thinking that he's destroying the world. Like we see, the world has been very polarized here in the United States of America. And so it was an interview, and it's really worth watching that interview because it's, at least whether you're a fan of Elon Musk and what he's doing with DOGE or not, at least be informed of what he says so you can see and judge yourself what's going on. Any case, what got my excitement was, I generally not sitting and watching these interviews, but someone who is together with me very much in the Mashiach feverish state, sent me last week a little clip of this particular conversation. He enticed me, and I listened to most of the interview. But what was mainly exciting to me were two parts. But this is the first thing I will share with you. Is Ted Cruz asks Elon, where are we holding with AI? How do you see artificial intelligence with the pace that it's going in 10 years from now? So Elon's answer to that was that in 10 years from now, AI is going to be smarter than any human being alive. Its intelligence is going to be superior to any human being alive. And therefore, he broke it down into various different parts, part of his answer. First thing he said was that 90% of miles driven are going to be by automated cars. If you live here in LA, you see already these cars are all over the place. They're called the Waymo. They're up and down my block nonstop, the Waymo cars. I think they're spying. It's crazy. It's nonstop. We see these Waymo cars. No one is inside of them. Wondering if passengers are inside. It's supposed to be some kind of like a Uber type of a service. But definitely Waymo is making its rounds. So he says, this is he's pretty knowledgeable, Elon. And his prediction is that in 10 years from now, 90% of all vehicles in the world, 90% of all miles driven, that's what he's saying, is going to be by automated cars. That means people will not be driving anymore. So then Cruz asked him, so what's going to be with jobs? And he said in 5 years from now, it's going to be 50%. Now, 5 years is a blink of an eye. It goes by really quick. Even 10 years is pretty fast. So all driving is going to stop. People are not going to be driving cars, which is where I'm going with this, is it's going to be a whole lot of extra time for people to do because you're not going to be driving cars. But we're going to get to that in a moment. But in addition to that, when he asked him the question, what's going to be? People are very worried. People are going to lose all their jobs because the AI is going to take over almost everything. So the first thing you need to know, his answer was that the outburst or the explosion of technology, which he said is going to include millions and millions, I don't know if millions he said or billions, but of robots that are going to be everywhere. Robots are just going to, this is going to be the decade when robots are going to roll out, and they're basically going to start making their way into common use. It's not going to be anymore something to go see somewhere, but it's going to be common use. And they are basically going to do, in 10 years from now, first of all, he said the quality of life, the comfort of living is not going to decrease, because you might say people will be out of jobs and they'll be poorer. He says it's very exciting because people are going to have far more accessibility to everything, and things are going to be far more convenient. Life is going to become, in that sense, much easier and far more convenient because things are going to be done and going to become automated. But he said not to worry about the loss of jobs, because he says goods and services are going to be almost nothing. That means the cost of what it's going to cost to get anything is going to be almost nothing. And he asks him why. Again, I'm not giving you over verbatim, but this is kind of the idea. He said, why is that? He says, because robots are going to be able to make for you just about anything that you want. And therefore, at a very, very low cost. And therefore, we're talking in 10 years. We're not talking about 30 years from now. We're talking about 10 years from now. And therefore, we're going to have access to like all goods and services. So if you think about yourself, I just gave this talk for women. So I was talking particularly to women. And there was a whole lot of Jewish women on this Zoom just yesterday. And I was talking about this, so in my head, I still have the examples I was using for women, but obviously this applies to each and every one of us and whatever it is that we were doing. But I was telling women how much time that as a homekeeper they use for cooking and doing laundry and shopping and then going out to get your kids for carpool. But if you have a system, imagine, you're a home full of children. Elon is a big fan of having big families. The Torah is also a big fan of having big families and populating the world. And for some reason, the tech giant is not worried that the world is not going to have enough to support the human race. Quite on the contrary, he wants the world to be more populated. And I guess he knows something about the world, that there is enough with the potential of all the automation that is going to come in to produce, to bring out the earth, to give out its yield. Plenty, so that there actually won't be any hungry people in the world. And food distribution will be able to be in ways that we've never even thought of. And the ability to bring forth the powers of the earth and production and so on and so forth. But in any case, again, I'm just giving you his prediction. Not that I'm saying that he's, the prophet. But pretty much this guy has been doing pretty well, if we might say, in his insights and his ability to see things of the future. So I'm just thinking, so what happens? So if you have a family, your refrigerator is automated. It's computerized. It knows exactly when you're running out of eggs, when you're running out of milk. It has basically your entire cooking schedule all automated, all with AI. It knows everything. And it shops by itself. It alerts the supermarket, whether it's Instacart or all these various different services, which are just going to grow exponentially. The orders are going to come. Amazon is going to deliver, not even needing any Amazon drivers, because everything is going to be able to be done by drones and by robots. And like we have already these robot delivery services here in Los Angeles. You always see them. The restaurants use them all the time with these big eyes. They're so cute. They move down the street. and they're delivering restaurant deliveries. But this is going to become common. This is going to be used by everybody for everything. So no need for shopping for your regular items. And even if you do need to shop something, all you need to do is a voice command. Might not even have to voice it. You might even be able to think it with where technology is going these days. And things are going to be able to be ordered automatically. Robots will be able to make the sandwiches for the kids. The kids go into the car, Waymo, something like that, automated car without a driver. It's fully programmed to drop them off in school, and so on and so forth. So your entire morning schedule as a woman, when you're busy preparing breakfast for the kids, and the truth is, breakfast is made as soon as you wake up. If it only has to be timed, the automation of throwing in the toast and making the grilled cheese or cereal and milk or whatever it is, all these things. Imagine that. This is no more a fairy tale. This is the world that we're looking at. Think about how easy it's going to be making Pesach. I've already visited my children just the other day in Pennsylvania, and they're all excited about the new machine that is running around the house and cleaning the floors. And this is just a simple machine. I forgot what it's called that everybody can have already today. It sweeps and it mops, right? So think about it. All housekeeping chores, all cleaning and dusting and cleaning, and all that stuff that is done. Imagine what it's going to be to make Pesach. You can have a special Pesach mode. The Pesach mode, the Passover mode, means that it gets into all the corners and really gets in and really scrubs and does things better than any human can do, and careful and doesn't break anything. It can really, really, really move. Plus, the cooking, because it's going to have all the information. You can put in your menus, you can put in your things, you can ask for the best menus, and it has everything. It can order exactly the right amounts, doesn't make the mistakes, and even kashrut-wise, it doesn't make mistakes. It'll be more reliable than a person. Than people who forget, and so on and so forth. So you got to get your whole Pesach done without even lifting your finger. Imagine the amount of work and the cleaning and the cooking, the doing. No need for going to hotels anymore for Pesach. You can have your fanciest hotel at your house. Giving just an example of various different chores. And so it is with most other types of work that we do. All this is going to be able, and is all available. And again, we're not talking about 100 years from now. We're talking about 10 years from now. Why is this so exciting? Because this has all been predicted. This has all been predicted a long time ago. In the book 2 weeks ago, we did a siyum on the conclusion of Maimonides, conclusion of the Rambam. And Maimonides says like this. And this is his last. The Rambam wrote the book Mishnah Torah. Again, the Rambam was compiled or authored about Moshe ben Maayon. I didn't check it up before the class, but give or take around 1,000 years ago, maybe 900 years ago, or the like. Any case, Rambam, in his last laws, says as follows. This is in the end of Laws of Kings, chapter 12. The prophets and the wise men did not yearn for the time of Mashiach. Not that Jewish people should be superior over the world, which is going to happen because Jews are going to possess the highest wisdom, as we're going to see soon. And therefore, the entire world will turn to Israel and to the Jewish people for knowledge. But that's not the point, that the Jewish people are looking for dominion. That's not what it is. And the Rambam says that's not at all the yearning for Mashiach was not to be superior. And not that they should dominate over the nations. And not even that they should be honored and respected by the nations. That they should be given great glory. Which all these things are obviously going to happen. Yes. And it's not going to be in a way of dominion, because the people in the world, the global community, will have such admiration for Israel simply because through the Jewish people, the flow of godly blessing to the world and godly enlightenment, which we're soon going to see, is going to become the obsession of the entire world. And not to eat and to drink, and to be rejoiceful for the material good that's going to be. Ella, Rambam says, we should have a whole lot of time to be available to study Torah and its wisdom. And we shouldn't have any problems. We shouldn't have any creditors or anything coming after us, any bills that take away our attention. Bills pile up and we have to pay this and we have to pay that. And we don't have the means to pay all of it so that we can keep our electricity on. Rambam says in the days of Mashiach, for some reason, you're not going to have any bills. No one coming after you, no creditors. And then it will allow us to study Torah, which will allow us then to achieve a ticket, an enabler to the world to come. Then Maimonides continues. Why? How is Yemoisa Mashiach, how is the Messianic era going to be a time when we're not going to have any troubles and no interferences, and we're going to be able to study and connect to God on the highest way without any interferences? So Rambam continues in his last law of the entire book, which means that all of the Torah and all of the mitzvot are leading up to bring the world to this stage. And what is it? And at that time, Lo yesham, there will not be over there, loirav, which means at that time, loirav, no famine. No one will be hungry in the world. V'loi milchama, there won't be any more war. V'loi kina v'tachris, there won't be any envy, and there won't be competition. And the reason is because you're only competitive when it comes to things that are scarce. Money, there's only a limited amount of money, and there's a limited amount of resources. So everybody wants a bigger piece of the pie. But when the world is going to be so abundant that there is an infinite, endless goodness, in an infinite goodness, and if you're in an infinite ocean, there's no competition of how much water you can grab because it's endless and it's infinite. So Rambam predicts, because in that time, so that will explain why there's no envy, because whatever you want, you can have. But Rambam says these words, Shahatoiva tio mushpas harbe. The good is going to be so available. V'chol ha'ma'adanim, and all delights, mitzuyim ka'afa, will be dirt cheap. Well, this was once a fairy tale when Maimonides was saying this. In a world where you still had to go to an outhouse, where there was no flushing toilets. In a world that you needed to go to the town, across town, to go to the well and draw water with buckets and bring it to your house for washing dishes and for cleaning, where there was no plumbing. In a world where there was no electricity, in a world where everything was manual toil, and people's resources were busy sweating by the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. In that world, it was impossible to imagine this. This had to be utterly magical. This had to be utterly miraculous. God had to send angels from heaven to be our servants. Well, Jews believed that this would be because Maimonides said it would be, and Maimonides knows this derives it from the statements of the sages, deriving it from scripture, from wherever they derived it. This is how they had this information, and they believed it. But it would take an absolute miracle. Today, the miracle is here already. And Elon Musk says we are 10 years away. But here is the next question Ted Cruz says there. So what are people going to do? That's basically going to open up the world for the biggest chaos, because people are going to be dead bored. Because whatever humans can do, machines can do much better and cheaper. So no one is going to be doing them through humans. Everything is going to be done through machines. So what are humans going to do? That was the question. And Elon had an answer for that as well. He said that people are going to have to start seeking fulfillment and meaning in life. People are so driven today to make a buck, to amass a fortune, to build a mansion, to get themselves a yacht. But part of it is all because, look, I have and you don't have. But when everybody has whatever they want, it's going to lose all of its appeal. All of it. Of course, we're going to live comfortably. We're going to have but the obsession and the drives, it's gone. Now we're going to have to start figuring out what human beings are really all about. We have to find meaning. And humans are going to start looking for meaning. So instead of having 1,000 people on this channel, we're going to have a couple of million for sure, 100 million. This is the best business to be in, is my business. This channel. So you guys that are listening now are the lucky ones. I'm not the only teacher. But we're pretty up there from the teachers that teach deep teachings of Torah, the esoteric teachings and the higher teachings, right? So anybody wants to invest in this channel, this is the future. That was just a little plug for myself, for the Maayon channel. But basically, people are going to be starting to look for meaning, for deeper meaning. And they're going to figure out very fast that deeper meaning lies in God. It's not going to take too long. And they're going to start searching for a deeper connection with God. And that is, the good news is we're never going to get bored. Because if the creation has so much infinite resources of blessings and so much power and such incredible gifts that is just within the creation, can you only imagine how much light and goodness is in the Creator himself, in the boundlessness of the Creator? And it's only at that time that the Creator will begin to shower the world with greater light and greater blessings. And mainly the ability to connect to God and to know Him and to attach ourselves to Him, which will bring us a delight and a pleasure and an ecstasy that is unmatched by anything. And that's what Elon is basically saying. He did not connect it to a religion. He didn't say anything like that, but he said those words. He said that in 10 years from now, when all of this is going to be readily available, what is going to happen is that human beings are going to turn their attention for meaning. People are going to look for a higher, for that. That's going to become the commodity that everybody's going to be searching for. So let's read and let's see if Elon Musk is correct. Well, we don't know. Elon is, a nice guy. Some people love him, some people hate him. And he's been, as we said earlier, he's been doing pretty neat, cool things. He got the astronauts back. And he's creating Neuralink, which is going to bring a whole lot of capabilities for people. He's going to be taking people out of space soon. And he created the Tesla, which is a pretty neat car, which everybody a while ago was all excited about because it was a electric car. Now he's a monster because he's helping Trump. But the thing is that but he's still only a human being. Let's take a look at what Maimonides said. Now Maimonides is also a human being, but Maimonides was a human being, a conduit for God's wisdom. So let's see what Maimonides says over here in a prophetic statement. Rambam says, so once everything turns dirt cheap and everything is available like dirt, because machinery are going to do everything. Again, Maimonides doesn't say that machinery is going to do it. Maimonides says, however, that state when everything is going to be available and there isn't going to be any work to do anymore is going to be, so we're not going to have anything to worry about. What does Maimonides continue? The occupation of the entire world will not be for anything else, only to know God alone. This is going to become man's occupation. Now, the truth is, when God created Adam and Eve and placed them in the Garden of Eden, that was God's intention to begin with. The human being was not meant to do laundry. The human being was not meant to be a farmer or a plumber or electrician or any type of manual type of laborers and so on and so forth, or any type of work, business, and all that was not meant for the human being to do. Initially, it says Adam was in the Garden of Eden, and he had angels performing all of his business, everything he needed. Him and Eve were taken care of. They had billions of angels at their disposal for whatever they needed. And because Adam and Eve sinned, they were banished from the Garden of Eden, and God cursed them. And he said, by the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. Because the world collapsed and there was a broken world. And Adam needed to, and his descendants are going to need to fix the world, repair the world, and bring it back to its state the way God intended it to begin with. If you think about it logically, if we think about human beings throughout most of history, have been basically using most of their resources. And I mean their mental resources, emotional resources, their physical energies, their physical talents. Most of, I don't know how much percent, let's say 85%, maybe even more. I don't know what the statistics are, of human effort, ingenuity, and all the work that humans have done from the beginning of time was basically to sustain life, to keep ourselves, to enable us to live. So you're working so that you can get the food you need to stay alive. So imagine if someone made a company in which most of the work and the income of the company just goes to sustain the company. That's a very, 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 that's a very unproductive business, where most of the revenue is just is able just to keep the business in business, not making profit. So why would God make an enterprise and create a human being as the chief operator within the world, and the human is working, and most of the time he's working, it's like hiring someone, and all the work that he's doing is just to pay his own salary without a profit? It's ridiculous. God created the human for a certain profit that God gets. What's that? God is not lonely anymore. He has a relationship. I mean, he's lonely before, but he wanted a relationship. And the relationship was he wanted us to get to know him. But how much time do we get to get to know him if most of the time we're busy just surviving? That is such a terrible and inefficient type of way to produce something. And we're talking about God. So it must be that was not the intention. The intention is that the human should be extremely profitable, and the human should grow, and God made sure that all of the human's needs were taken care of so that he can devote his life to what he or she are meant to do. And that is to deepen their connection and serve their creator and lift the entire world to a deep connection with God, which is boundless and infinite. We took a little detour because we decided to taste that fruit, which God said, don't go there. So for the last 5,500 years, we did a little detour. We come back with Mashiach's coming to the state where we need to be in. And that is that we go back to the angels taking care of everything. But those angels are all the robots that are here. In other words, God says, I initially provided you with angels. Now I want you to go out and you create your own angels. And that's what we did. We produced a world that doesn't need any more human interaction. Everything is going to be automated. So we basically brought ourselves back to where God said, I gave you the angels and you messed it up. You know what? You go out now. You're gonna have to do it yourself. But now we've done it ourselves, obviously with God's power and with God's what he imbued in us. But now we've created a world with all those angels that it says in the Midrash were taking care of Adam in Garden of Eden. Now we have all those angels, the transportation that is automated, the robots that are all automated, all the AI that we've created that will outdo the human. And here's the thing, the AI is never meant to substitute the human being, and it's not going to destroy the world, and they're not going to kill humans out, and so on and so forth. I'm happy there are those that are concerned about that and worried about that, and let them worry, and keep themselves busy with that fear. Whoever believes in Torah knows that the human race is not going to be wiped out by AI and by robots and by computers and so on. So it's not going to happen. What all these things are going to take over, they're going to take over all the stuff we shouldn't be doing anyways. And we're going to start doing what we ought to be doing, and that is connecting ourselves to God. And guess what? And that's going to take the human into such a superior state. And maybe our levels of comfort and our levels of reward in terms of physical comfort and physical availabilities are going to grow exponentially together with that, computers, as we know now, can create themselves and make themselves. AI is able to produce and reproduce itself greater and greater than ever before. So as we grow, it will grow along with us and will always be able to be the servant of man, but it will always remain the servant of the human being. And we will then move into a state of, but it was so beautiful and refreshing to see it. He just stated exactly what Rambam says, not knowing that Maimonides, and I don't think the night before Elon read Maimonides and read that statement, but when what Maimonides says about Mashiach is what you hear when in the newspaper or in an interview in the White House, then you know that we've arrived. So that's like incredible. So we continue to the next element and phase of that interview, which was also fascinating. Obviously, they were talking about the wasteful spending of the United States government. And the question was, how bad is it? And I loved it. And I loved it that when Elon was talking about what an incredible, unbelievable mess. It's like he said that you can't even begin to imagine what kind of mismanagement and what kind of waste. Talking about any company that would run that way, the officers, the board members, and everybody would be arrested. They would throw the key away. And this is the United States government that was so operating with such inefficiency. And they asked him the question, how much is mismanagement and how much is fraud? He says 20% is, according to his estimation, 20% fraud, which, by the way, is an enormous amount of money, which people should be held accountable for. 20% fraud, but 80% just absolute waste. But you understand something, in that waste, there was a leakage, and that leakage was sending billions and billions and billions of dollars to all kinds of stuff that we should not be supporting and should not be receiving funding. And basically, he was asked the question, why is he being hated so much? Because Ted Cruz said, 5 years ago, you would go to the Oscars and you were like the hero of the hero, and now they hate you like anything. He said, how's it feel? He basically explained that they hate him because he's basically stopping the bleed. He's stopping the bleed. He's stopping he's shutting off the valves, the pipelines. He basically got into the pipelines and figured out through the logins to all the computers where all this cheating is taking place and where all this incredible waste is going. And now, what does that have to do with Mashiach? Let's take a moment and see. Is there anything like, how is that? Now, that is so incredibly Mashiach. It's interesting. I'm talking about Elon Musk tonight. Tonight is the Lubavitcher Rebbitzin's birthday. Rebbitzin Chana Chaya Mushka, her birthday. And I've already explained in many classes that Mushka, which is the Rebbitzin's name, I wasn't even intending this, and this is by Hashgacha Pratis, by divine providence. Mushka is the same essence as the name Musk. And this is not my own thought. The Rebbe himself says about his wife that Mushka is related to the power of number 11, which is one of the species, or one of the spices, one of the herbs, or one of the fragrances. Actually, it's not an herb. It's coming from a secretion of an animal, and which is called the musk. And that musk was in the special ketores that was offered. And so I made the connection a few times, a couple of classes ago. I had this, actually it was Thanksgiving that this thought hit my head. I was on a hike, I mentioned to you in one of the classes, where this hit me like a bolt of lightning. If you remember where it was, that place was burnt down afterwards in the fires of the Palisades. It was such a revelation. It set the whole Palisades on fire. It was so incredible. I mean, it's sad that it burnt down for many reasons, and Hashem should take care of those that have the loss, that Hashem should be able to rebuild, and they should find the means to rebuild. And for my personal effect of it is that all my hiking trails where I used to hike are at least blocked for now. Um, and that's affecting my inspiration. But in any case, but there was this, I had this epiphany that Musk and Mushka is the same idea, and that Elon Musk is a product and an effect of the work of the Rebbe explains how the Rebbetzin, his wife's work, is the culmination of all the Jewish women, of all their service. It brings down such a godliness, and that godliness has the power to convert all the darkness to light, which is what musk is. Musk is a non-kosher animal secretion or like a perfume that comes from a non-kosher animal. And it nevertheless became part of the highest service. It's a conversion. And as I discussed in the earlier classes, the conversion that we are seeing now in the world of Edom, in the world of Asa, which is the United States of America, to become completely flipped over and transformed and become an ally of the Jewish people and an ally of Israel and an ally of holiness, not just an ally of holiness, but it's being actually uplifted into holiness itself, as we will talk about soon. This, it's interesting that the discussion of it is tonight by divine providence. Again, I wasn't planning it. So I would like to share with you why I think DOGE is like the most godliest Moshiach thing that I've seen in a very long time. And that is due to the idea as follows. Some of this we've already discussed, but I'd like to sharpen it. And again, by divine providence, there's a holy book called the Book of Tanya, which you probably heard of familiar, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad Hasidism. That book, in chapter 37, which by divine providence, we are learning right now in our daily Rambam. We're learning chapter 37. And by divine providence, the class that I'm giving tonight is already the day in which what I am teaching you right now is tomorrow's piece of Tanya. It's actually from the entire year. Again, the Tanya is divided into pieces. The previous Chabad Rebbe divided the Tanya into short lessons, some short, some longer, so that we cover it through. Once a year, we finish the entire book of Tanya. So in the portion that's exactly for tomorrow, and again, I did not intend this to speak about this because of tomorrow's class, but just like it's the Rebbetzins yahrzeit, not yahrzeit, birthday, and the connection was match made by heaven. It was made by divine providence. The fact that we are talking about this Tanya today is again by divine providence, in which we will see how DOGE equals Mashiach in a spectacular way. So if you wonder why there's such a fit being thrown about anti-DOGE and anti-Elon Musk, by the way, you know, when you take a look at who's screaming and who's shouting and who's throwing a temper tantrum, most of the times that itself is an indication that it's a good thing. Because usually holiness is what makes people mad. Not everybody, the type of people that I'm talking about. They get very upset when when holiness is prevailing. So this is super holy and super godly. And let's understand why. So the Alter Rebbe in chapter 37 says like this. He speaks about the purpose of creation. And then he speaks about how we get to the purpose. So in chapter 36 in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that the purpose of creation, which for many years, even the Jewish people did not really have crystal clear what the purpose was. Certain secrets are revealed as the passage of time. So you have a lot of Jewish philosophers and thinkers who gave different explanations to the purpose of the world, but nothing reaches and as comprehensive like the Alter Rebbe's, Reb Shneur Zalman's philosophy and his idea. And we're seeing it clearer and clearer and clearer that he is right, and that is, without a question, the purpose of all of existence, the purpose of God creating the world. It's not what he is making up. He's not making up anything. He's just highlighting teachings that were said thousands of years earlier, but they were kind of swept under the carpet, which means they weren't paid too much attention to because they were amongst many other teachings. What the Alter Rebbe did was he shone the light and said that this is the centerpiece. This is the Tachna Merkazit. This is the central station. This is where everything comes to. This is the inner point. The Midrash and Shir Hashirim and in other places state that the reason God created the world was because Nisava Kadosh Baruch Hu, because God had a desire, lias loidira betachtonim. God desired to have a dwelling place in the lower worlds. Hashem wanted to have a dwelling place in the lower world. The reason I'm looking is I want to make sure I'm on YouTube. I don't see any comments. So I see, it looks like I'm only on Facebook. Okay, so only on Facebook. It's only on Facebook. I must have hit only Facebook. That's why. Okay, we're gonna move it afterwards. We're gonna put it onto YouTube. It's take a little more work, but we're gonna get it done. That's what I think. It's what it looks like. It's okay. It's not gonna change. We're not gonna do it now. We're gonna have to wait till the rushed. It's not a big deal. High-tech people. In a world which is so tech, we could probably just tell AI to do it. To move the class from Facebook to YouTube. Okay. It's good. It's good. It's very good. In any case, so the Alter Rebbe says that the purpose of creation is that God wants to have a home in the lower world. What does that mean? It means that the physical material world should become filled with divine consciousness, even more than the highest heavens above. The most spiritual worlds that have a great measure of divine revelation are not going to come close to the intensity of godliness that is going to be revealed in the lower world. And not only is it not going to come close in terms of it's going to be a higher light that's going to be radiating on earth, but it's going to be completely of a different nature. Because all the heavens, all they receive is a glimmer of his light. They just receive his light. The higher you go in heaven, the greater the manifestation of God's light. But it's only light. It's not any of the substance of God. A home is a place where a person lives with their entire essence. In a home, a person moves in and their entire being, that's what a house is, a home is. A home is where you live with your entire being. You don't project certain personality traits of yourself in your house. You don't act in a certain way. You are as you are in your home. And that's what God wants. He wants to move into this world and be fully revealed in our world with his essence. Our tiny physical world becomes the deepest and most connected to God. That's the purpose. He initially creates this world to be the most ungodly. And then he gives the human being the work and the privilege and the honor to do all what it takes to bring God to move into this world. And what does that take? Two things. It takes cleaning up the toxics, because this world is God's attraction. Because God is attracted to this world becomes prime real estate. And every evil that exists in the world, every evil in existence, wants to steal this world away, steal this real estate for itself. Satan also gets the desire. The snake also gets the desire to be in this world, the physical world. It's interesting. See, why was the snake so interested in conquering this world? Why? Which we know the snake was only a representative of the Satan, of the Sitra Achra, of the other side. Why? It's because whatever God desires becomes prime real estate. So the snake now says, no, if God wants it, it must be really good. I want it too. So he persuades Adam and Eve. They eat from the tree of knowledge. And what they did was they allowed the snake's venom. They allowed the impurity of the satanic energies to pollute everything in the world. The entire world becomes mixed good and evil. And in that state, God does not lose his interest, but God cannot move into it. The world is not ready yet to be a home for him. So what needs to happen? We need to clean it up, but we also need to bring in the furniture so God can move in. And what are the furniture? Just like anybody's going to move into a house, you require certain furniture. God has certain comforts that make this world appealing and comfortable for him to move in. And what is that? That is expressed through the mitzvot. The mitzvot that we do are our physical actions. They all engage an action and a substance. Every mitzvah involves material from the physical world. That's the subject matter of this week's Torah portion, Parshas Vayakel Pekudei. We take the material worlds and we made a little mishkan for God. We make a little home for God. Eventually, God wants the entire world to become a home for him, not just a little courtyard with a little house. The entire world. Within that, there is going to be a temple, but really it's the entire world that God will move into. But for that, we need the proper furniture. And just like in the tabernacle or in the holy temple, it was very specific. God is very specific with the furniture that he wants. He tells us exactly what the ark should look like and what the menorah should look like and what the table should look like, with all the detail to the tiniest little thing. So too, the mitzvot are instructed to us how we make the world a place where we can draw God down. And not only, here's the cool thing, not only are we preparing the world for God to move into it, but when we do a mitzvah, we're actually downloading God into the world while we're doing the mitzvah. It's just that we don't see it. Until the project is over, we don't see how we just downloaded God, literally, not God's light, God's essence, into the material world. And part of that work, however, is to get the unholy out of here. Because as long as they're residents in the world, as long as the unholy, the snake, lives in the world, God is not comfortable. Just like we would not be comfortable when we have a rat living in our house side by side, God is not comfortable when evil exists in his world. So he basically says, clean it up and prepare for me what I need, and then I will move in. When will he move in? He moved in already. Every time we did a mitzvah, we move him in bit by bit. But when will he be revealed that he is revealed? When will the lights turn on? And we will sense the infinite being present and manifest and living literally with us, inside of us, within each and every one of us, and within every element of the world. When is that going to happen? That is going to happen at the time of the redemption, the coming of Mashiach, and that's what we're always talking about. Okay. Now the next question. That's the theme of chapter 36. Chapter 37 is what we're learning now, and the one that we're going to be learning, the little piece we're going to be learning tomorrow especially, is dealing with how does it happen exactly? What's the tech work, the technicality of it? How does it work? So the Alter Rebbe says like this. You think, because we said before we need to do mitzvot to make the world holy. But how many Jews are there in the world? The Jews are a tiny minority. And how much of the physical resources of the world are we engaging in a mitzvah? Not that many. How much wheat, from the percentage of wheat, so much of the wheat is being made into tortillas. And much wheat is made into muffins and cookies and cakes and pizza and pasta. And I don't know, I'm not going to go on and on and on and on about every type of pie and every type of food that's cooked across the world, all wheat. Then there's a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of wheat that's going to end up being matzah. It's going to be the matzah yield. The lucky, which Jews are going to eat this Passover. And we're going to do the mitzvah, the God mitzvah. So we're going to bring God into the tiny, tiny little bit of wheat. But how does the rest of the produce of the world become holy? So the Alter Rebbe explains that it's an incredible system. And it works something like this, okay? That every object in the world, every entity in the world, some way or another, is helping support. There isn't a cell, let's put it this way. There isn't one atom in the universe that is not supporting the Jewish people doing mitzvot. That means even though it seems like there are distant galaxies and things that don't have any relationship with this world, they all do. And obviously it's easier to figure that out and there's a domino effect. Like I used to give always the example that like there are not that many Jews living in doing mitzvot in Taiwan, or not to Taiwan, in Indonesia. Okay, which Jew is in Indonesia? I'm sure there were some Jews there, but not enough to say that all of Indonesia is going to be elevated, because from who? And there's hundreds of millions of people. And so in China and so in places where there are very few Jews, or at least if there are Jews, they're there recently, but they haven't been there throughout all the long period of time that we need to purify all of the world. However, the truck that is bringing Kellogg's Rice Krispies to your local grocery store, that truck has steel screws in the wheels or some other part of the truck, and those screws or whatever they are manufactured in Indonesia. So what does it have to do? So there's a Kellogg truck, yes, but then a Jew buys one box of Rice Krispies and eats that for breakfast, and makes a blessing. That itself elevates the Rice Krispies. And then the Jew uses that Rice Krispies energy and studies Torah. So he converted the energy of the calories that he or she got from the Rice Krispies. Not only Rice Krispies, it could be whatever. Okay, it could be oatmeal, whatever it is. Doesn't make a difference what it is. And then you make a blessing. And then you use the energy and do a mitzvah. So God's will has now connected, has been created by the food you ate. Your food that you've eaten literally became a mitzvah. Because, we're not watching, but energy gets continuously converted. We're converting energy. The food you eat turns into your blood, and you burn calories when you're doing things. And those calories, you burn it into the action you're doing. And if that action is God's will, then it's basically converting the energy into God, and God is now finding expression in that physical world. But guess what? It's not only the bowl of Krispies or the oatmeal that you ate that gave you the energy, but every single thing that enabled that to happen is now elevated and becomes attached to God and becomes a vessel where God can now manifest and reveal himself in the time of Mashiach. So the people working in your local Vons or whatever it is, Costco, and they're moving the forklifts around. Okay, these are guys that are not Jewish. They didn't hardly heard of the Jewish people. They sit and they play Nintendo whenever they have a free moment, and they have nothing to do games and are not philosophical, seeking, and not super religious. But every day they fill those Costco shelves with things, and then from time to time you order. In today's days, you don't even have to go there. You get from Instacart, and they can deliver it. And all these people that are involved, the shopper that's shopping for you, the one that's bringing it, the one who's stacking it, the metals that are in the trucks that are bringing, all these people are being elevated by one Jew doing one mitzvah through that energy. So you realize the domino effect, or how this affects. Now, in order to grow the rice fields, think about the rice fields. Where's the rice coming from? I don't know I don't know whether it grows in America or whether it's imported from different places. All those people are elevated with that bowl of Rice Krispies. Now the sun is also elevated because the rays of the sun helped grow the Rice Krispies. So you realize how this whole system, and only God in his infinite wisdom prepares that through our mitzvot that we do, we touch every single energy in the entire universe is affected. That's how the whole world becomes sublimated, through the 613 commandments. It's fascinating. Now, but hear this idea. Okay, this is now we're going to move to DOGE now. Okay, so follow along. He says like this idea of taking the world and elevating it into holiness comes, however, there is a challenge. What's the challenge? You can't elevate the world when the world is still mixed with bad. Since everything in this world is a mixture of good and bad, so you have to first separate the good from the bad, and then it gets elevated. Okay? Now, here's an important, it seems to be a little bit of a different subject, but it's not a different subject. So now let's take a look at evil a second. And take a look, how is evil sustained? How is the unholy, how is darkness given power? Ultimately, all life comes from God. God is the source of life. And there's no life without Hashem. And Hashem sustains and enlivens everything. So if God doesn't like them, how is Satan alive? And how is the forces of darkness and the forces of impurity, where do they get their life from? So obviously God allows them to exist. He actually creates them, sustains them, and gives them life. But it says in these words that Tahir einayim erois bara. God has pure eyes. God doesn't want to look at evil. Even though God sustains evil and he knows it intimately, but he doesn't want to look at it. He can't stand it. He hates them. He hates them with infinite hate. And therefore he doesn't want to sustain them. But he does so. But how does he do so? He does through an interesting medium. And here is the technology of how it works. It works as like this. God sustains holiness. What's holiness? Holiness is everything that serves directly his will. Everything that acknowledges God and serves God, those are the forces that God imbues his energy in. So they're angelic forces above, trillions of gazillions of angels above, and all the spiritual worlds of holiness, they're all receiving sustenance from God. And there's a food chain. There's like the energy going from step to step, and God is directing every little nuance of it. At the very, 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 very end, which is our world, at the lower levels of existence, is where the impure begins, the unholy. Now, God created them intentionally because God wants there should be a choice that we should earn our connection with him. We should earn making this world a home for him. By what? By our work. So our work is going to involve choices that we need to make. We have to have freedom of choice to choose right from wrong. So he allows the unholy to develop. But the way it works is like that. Because he doesn't want to have contact directly with the unholy. He doesn't want to touch them. He's repulsed by them. So the way it works is like, and more than that, if anybody receives direct energy from God, then that entity would not be able to rebel against God. It works two ways. God is repulsed by the evil and he doesn't want to sustain them. He doesn't want to feed a lowly, monster. God does not want to feed them. On the other hand, if the monster would plug in directly from God, God's energy would make it holy. That's number one. Or it would have to convert to holiness. It would have to acknowledge God. It would not be able to ignore. It would not be able. So it has to receive from a back channel. That's the point. So how does it work? So it's like this. After where the realms of holiness end, there is like a outside. And by the way, all these ideas are Kabbalistic ideas. The Alter Rebbe is not saying them of his own. They're Kabbalistic ideas already spoken of by the Arizal and the Zohar and so on and so forth. And it really originates the scripture. Because when it describes how Ezekiel, Yecheskel saw the chariot, it says that he sees the chariot and there's beasts in the chariot. And then he sees a noga, some kind of a glowing light. So the noga is what the Kabbalists pick up on. And they explain that this noga is already a shell. This is where the unholy begins. And the reason it's a shell, which means it's a concealment unholiness, it's already a dark force. But why is it called noga, which means light, which means glowing, is because it's a glowing shell. A glowing shell means a mixed entity that's mixed good and bad. The shell is the unholy of it that conceals God. The glow of it is the little bit of light that's shining in it. This is an interesting creature. It's a mix, half good and half evil. It's a spiritual force. Let's understand. So we're talking about a spiritual force that contains in it millions of angels and and these billions, I don't know how many. They're all entities that are mixed good and bad. And more than that, most of the, I would say, all the energy, let's limit that, not energy. Most of the life force coming from God to create and sustain this lowly world called the material world before we make it holy, the initial physical world, most of the, meaning the power of God that is producing planet Earth, the oceans, all the minerals, the mountains, the valleys, the forests, that energy that's flowing to it is all coming from this spiritual force called Klipas Noga. That's why the physical earth naturally is not holy. Earth is not sacred. A tree is not sacred. A mountain is not sacred. The ocean, the rivers, the seas, the lakes are not sacred. It's mundane. What does mundane mean? It's not displaying God, because that's what Klipas Noga is. Since it's energy that's producing it, obviously everything is coming from God, but it's coming through a channel. God is giving life to the force. See, the places that are holy, they are sacred. See, the angels that are holy, that recognize God and glowing with God, that's a holy angel. You wouldn't be allowed to go to the bathroom in front of the angel, because just like you wouldn't go to the bathroom, you wouldn't go in front of a Torah, because the Torah is holy, because you treat the Torah. But so in front of it, if you would walk into a room full of angels, you're not allowed to, you should be dressed properly. You're not allowed to run around in your underwear in a holy environment. But if you're outside in the field, as long as it's modest and you need to go, right? It's not holy. Why is it not holy? It's not holy because it's not yet revealing God. The physical world is not yet revealing God. Why isn't it? Because the energy that's sustaining the world is coming from this spiritual klipa that is a mixed good and bad, and it's sustaining the world. It's sustaining the material elements of this world. Everything in the material world, all plants, everything. It's all good, and animals too, but only kosher animals. All animals that the Torah deems are kosher are being sustained. Their energy, their spiritual energy, is from this klipa called noga, a mix of good and bad. Now, what does it mean it has good in it? What it means good in it means it has a potential that we could polish it and allow it to reflect godliness. So the earth, for example, we could build on the earth a temple, a house of worship. You can take the earth and plant in it wheat kernels, and from those wheat kernels, you can make matzah for Pesach. And if you're going to make matzah on Passover, you're going to do a mitzvah. So the earth now becomes participant in the mitzvah. So the earth could be elevated. You could plant a vine and make wine and use the wine for the 4 cups of wine. Or make Kiddush Friday night, which is a holy mitzvah. God's will, it's being elevated. Or even if you're not going to do a mitzvah, but you can say a blessing on a glass of water taken from a stream. You pronounce God's name on it. You declare God as the king of the universe by drinking the water. You've elevated the water. You've elevated the river. So you've made it, or the well, or the spring, and you made it holy. So it has a potential to be invited into holiness. What's the bad side of it? We say it's a mix of good and bad. The bad side of it is that a criminal can come, take a glass of water, drink the water, and go around the corner, God forbid, and murder someone with that hydration that they got from the water. Which means that the water can go up or it can go down. Higher and lower. That's the good and bad that's mixed in it. But those are all the things in this world that are kind of kosher. Then there is another realm. Now hear very clearly. After the klipat noga, after this level of energy that's mixed good and bad, which is most of the energy of the material physical world, there is another level of really dark energy, where the energy drops many, makes a free fall, and it goes into a state where it's absolutely in denial of God, or it's in a state of rebellion against Hashem. That's when it becomes satanic. It goes lower than klipas noga. That's already evil. Where do they receive their energy? So here is the catch. The forces of pure evil, because they can't plug into God, where do they plug into? The forces of evil plug into Noga. And Noga is plugged into God, into holiness. So this is the way it works. God supports the realms of holiness. Through holiness, the energy comes to Noga. To which side of Noga? Since Noga has good, the good of Noga, the good of this glowing shell, receives the energy from holiness. It mixes with the bad. Once it mixes with the bad, that which is of the real dark stuff are able to be sustained. They plug in their outlet. Where do they receive their divine energy that sustains them and empowers them? It's all through the medium of what? Of klipat noga. That's the medium. Therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, they also have these impure klipot also have input in the physical world, and that is that they're the source of life. They're the ones that support all sin, which means when a person does a sin, anything that's against God's will, the vitality and energy that at that moment, we don't realize how quickly our channel, just like it's like a radio, you can switch a TV, you can switch it from channel to channel. It's amazing. Our decisions, every second, we tune into different channels of energy flow. The moment we're doing a mitzvah, we're turning our channels towards a flow of, we're not even receiving from Noga, we're receiving directly from the purest waters, the Fiji water that you got me over here. The purest water, the purest flow of God directly when we're doing a mitzvah. When we're studying Torah, we're receiving it. Outwardly, you don't see anything. Outwardly, a person looks the same when they're learning Torah, but it's not true. When you're doing a mitzvah, your radiance is shining from one end of the world to the other end of the world if we would only have eyes to see. Because you're receiving your vitality directly from holiness. If you're doing something that is just worldly, not a mitzvah, just worldly, you're taking a stroll, then you're receiving your energy walking on the street. Nothing wrong. It's not a sin. It's not a mitzvah. It's not a sin. You're then in receiving your energy from Noga. You're in a different channel. It's from Noga. And now the question is, what are you going to do with the calmness you got from your walk? It calmed you down again. If you're going to later use that refreshing experience to help you become closer to God, you will have elevated that experience into holiness. And you've been doing a big service to God, even more than if you just were in the realm of holy, because you'll have been transported some experience from the middle, from the Noga world, and moved that into godliness and made an ungodly part of the world godly. Now, if when you're walking on the street, you will use that restfulness to then go ahead and do things that are God doesn't approve of, dark stuff or whatever it is, then you're going to be taking that entire experience and the energy you got, which always remember that every energy we have is connected to so many other powers and power. We drag, each and every one of us is a locomotive dragging a train of, like, sometimes in Florida when we want to cross. You come across a train and you're waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. You think the train is never ending. It's like you're in a rush to go somewhere, and it's like my worst nightmare. I know it doesn't happen over here, but in Florida, I've been there sometimes, in Miami and there. I don't know if you ever gotten stuck behind one of those trains. They don't end. It's like on and on and on and on. Each and every one of us is like a locomotive carrying like a train of and wherever we go, we're pulling that along with us. We have to realize wherever we go. So if we use it for non-good things, then we're dragging a whole lot of the world into darkness. Okay, so we have chance. When a person directly, however, goes and does a sin, then at the moment they're doing the sin, they're receiving their energy from the pure darkest elements of the world, from the impure, from satanic elements. They're sustaining the person. And then, if you would only see it, we would literally, it would look like a monster on Halloween. We would pass out of seeing the way a person looks at that moment of a sin. So you realize we have a chance to move from the channel to channel as we move from holy to the middle to the lower range. Okay. But here's what the Alter Rebbe says is a tremendous secret. He says like this: our main work is the middle ground, the permissible. Because whenever we are utilizing the world, the material elements of this world, whatever is kosher in this world, because remember, what's not kosher is receiving its energy from the impure, from the three impure, and whatever is coming from the three impure klipot are not elevatable. Can't elevate that. Can't transport that into godliness. That's impure. The middle ground is what we elevate, which is most of the universe. It's all part of the middle. Most of the elements of this world is part of the Noga. But this is what we do, he says. When we do mitzvot, when we use our physical resources in this world to serve God, we are taking the good potential of Noga and elevating it into holiness, transporting it into holiness. What's happening to the bad that's in it? It's becoming separated. As it separates more and more and more, it loses its life, because its entire life of the bad of Noga comes from the good of Noga. Once the bad of Noga separates from the good, it's like a peel or a shell is alive as long as it's connected to the fruit on the tree. If the peel falls off, once it's not connected anymore, it gets separated, it doesn't have any life anymore. So once the evil, which is just shells, gets separated, they have to become lifeless. But here's the amazing thing. The more we transport Noga into holiness, then the power that the klipa, and remember, what did we learn earlier? The three impure klipot, they cannot receive vitality from holiness. They can only receive vitality from this middle Noga state that's still mixed with good and evil. But once all the good has been extracted from Noga and there's nothing left, it's plain dead. Then when the impure tries to plug into it, it's like plugging into a electricity port or electricity thing when the power is down. You're not getting any power. So what happens to them? They slowly wither and suffocate. They still have some battery life. They have a little charger, which they can kind of stay alive for a little while. But they wither and wither until they just drop dead. There's nothing there. There's no life there anymore. It just disappears completely. And he says that's Moshiach. When Moshiach comes, it's when we completed. And he says it takes all the Jewish people, 600,000 souls. When we say 600,000 souls, we mean 600,000 root souls, which each one of these souls is divided in 600,000 of their own. So it's a few 100 million souls, which is throughout all of history, doing all the mitzvot, thereby elevating all the energies of Noga and elevating it into holiness. And thereby the unholy becomes less and less, doesn't have power, until it literally dies out. This is the idea the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, is how Mashiach comes. And then God is not going to have to destroy the evil. You don't have to destroy it. It suffocates on its own. It loses its vitality and its energy, and then it disintegrates and it's gone. This is the Tanya for tomorrow. Now, I hope you stayed awake till now, because here's the clincher. It says in Kabbalah that this Klipat Noga also has a physical incarnation in this world. And that is incorporated in Esav, Yaakov's brother. Yaakov is holiness. Esav is supposed to be the shell to Yaakov. He's the Klipat Noga. Edom, the nations of Edom. Edom is not part of the Gentile world generally. They are in between Jewish people and the Gentile world because they're a brother of, they're a son of the patriarchs of Abraham and Isaac. They're the other brother, which is Rome, which is the West, the Christian West, and eventually the United States of America. Where is this concept primarily alluded to? It's alluded to, this is fascinating, it's alluded to in the idea that there are three animals. When it talks about non-kosher animals in Parshat Shmini, in the Torah portion we're going to be learning about in 2-3 weeks, no, right after Passover, in that Torah portion, in that parsha, it says what's kosher, what's not kosher. It says every animal that doesn't have split hooves and chews its cud is not kosher. But there are some animals, it mentions 4 types of animals that it specifically says are not kosher. The camel, the hare, and the inex, or whatever they call it. Three types of animals. And then it mentions a 4th one in a separate verse. The 4th one is the pig. Now the pig is distinguished from all the other ones. It has one side, it has the split hooves. The other ones chew their cud but don't have split hooves, but the pig has split hooves and doesn't chew its cud. So it's explained, and we spoke about this a few weeks ago, that the pig represents this klipat noga. That its split hooves is from where the unholy gets its energy. Remember we said klipas noga is, klipas noga you can say is it's a klipa, but it's not bad, it's wonderful. In a sense, it's worse than all the others because it supports, the klipat noga is the enabler for all evil to exist in the world. But on the other hand, it's fixable because it has good and bad in it. So it's on the one hand, it's better than all the other klipot. On the other hand, it's much worse than all the other ones because it is the supporter and the enabler of all of that, because through it, without it, no one would have power. It's the supplier. Imagine who's worse, the terrorist or the one who supplies the terrorists with the weapons and the money and the funding to do the terrorist act. They're both the same at least. So in general, we say the pig is, that's why in Judaism, the pig was always the symbol of the most unkosher thing. Yet we know that the sages tell us the pig is going to become kosher when Mashiach comes. So it's explained, the Kabbalists say like this. This is the teachings of Arizal. The 3 animals that are mentioned in the pasuk that are not kosher represent the 3 impure klipot. They are the physical symbol in the Torah for the 3 impure dark forces. The pig is the symbol for klipat noga, for this glowing shell. The 3 impure will always remain unkosher because the 3 impure klipot, they're not elevatable, but the pig is elevatable. Once the pig is elevated, then you know Mashiach is here. Because it's not going to, there's no more support coming to the unholy, and the unholy dies, it's out. So what's really amazing is if you see America as Edom, and therefore as Klipat Noga, and we are finding out now that the United States Treasury and the United States government was a breeding ground for support of every type of corruption in the world. millions and millions of dollars were simply going to terrorists. UNRWA was being supported. And UNRWA was literally a infestation of Hamas. That's what they were. Hezbollah was getting millions of dollars. Iran was getting billions of dollars from the Obama and Biden administration. This is what we know of. And through various different lobbyists and through unchecked money, you realize how much money was unchecked. If you listen to this interview with Elon, he's saying how there's 11 computers that are basically called magic money machines, he says. They were giving money and money and money endlessly in all directions. Do you know how much was leaking? In addition to that, all these incredible anti-godly movements in the world, which want to obliterate every bit of holiness from this world. You can tell me whatever you want. God does not approve of transgenderism. God doesn't approve of it. God does not approve for certain lifestyles. So all these woke ideas, which were totally antithetical to holiness and to godliness, not only were people who were seeking help getting help, but they were trying to educate globally people in countries farther away that are not that maybe we're not even interested, but to indoctrinate generations, little children, with this garbage. And all of this, tons of money was flowing from the United, and it's my and your tax money, was going to all this chazarai, all this absolute. And what DOGE is doing right now is it's all being shut off. Instead, it's supporting Israel, giving weapons for Israel to be able to obliterate its enemies. And it's seeking to make the world, with all the money that is being saved, you know what kind of good things are going to be able to be done? Rightful things. You know how much we will truly be able to help those who really need help in things that they really need help? What kind of incredible improvements we can make, and what kind of improvements we can make to make the world safe. And what you're watching over here is basically evil itself is being shut down. And what's so crazy is that's the reason. If you want to know the temper tantrum, you want to know why they're going crazy and they're going nuts, and Elon Musk has become the most evil person in the world in the eyes of, is because he's basically shut down the funding. It's literally what it says in Tanya is going to happen. That Klipas Noga is going to be elevated in holiness. And once it's elevated into holiness, it doesn't leak anymore. The unholy. What I'm saying is that the physical world is literally reflecting and manifesting, and a reflection of what's happening in the spiritual. It's a direct, you're seeing in the physical, you're seeing the whatever it says in Tanya is literally in the newspaper. This is what's happening now. And it started this year. It started 2 months ago. Trump tried in this first term, but he couldn't do it. And now it's in place. You're just 2 months into it. We have no idea the consequence of this. He says he's going to save the United States $1 trillion in just the period. I don't know how long he's planning to be in DOGE. Initially, when Trump hired him, he said until Independence Day, for July 4th, 2026, which is going to be the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. By then, he wants to have cleaned up everything. And you realize they're just scratching the surface. Who knows how much more they're going to find? And all of this is reflected in the fact that the United States was sending billions of dollars to Social Security accounts of people that are not alive. So I'm not talking just from the fraud element of it. Spiritually, what does that mean? The klipot, the three impure klipot, are called dead people. That's their name. The wicked is called dead. So it was literally reflected. The fact that we were sending Social Security checks to the dead meant spiritually that Klipat Noga, which is again reflected by the United States, was still supporting the three impure Klipos that are called dead. But now, since we're holding seconds before Mashiach, the good and the evil has separated itself. No more checks are going to the dead people, which means there's no more financial support spiritually to Klippa. It's going to die. And it's dying already. And you're watching it with your own eyes. DOGE and Mashiach. And the reason I'm saying it's not, we would think it's a match made in heaven. It's not a match made in heaven. It's a match made on earth. Because it's all of our work that we have done for thousands of years on earth that has emptied out the good and disconnected the bad from the good of Klipas Noga, elevated Klipas Noga into holiness, and defunded whatever needs to be defunded. So DOGE and Mashiach is the ultimate sign, inherently. It's not a sign of Mashiach. This is Mashiach. Obviously, we're still waiting for Mashiach to reveal himself and the great exponential spiritual consciousness to hit the universe along with that. But if you look at the deeper at the signs, you're seeing that it's right over here. Now, what's the connection to this week's Torah portion? So I want to share with you one last important thought. If you've been following this channel for years, you'll see that we started over here in the year about 2009. That's when the Maayon classes began. We opened our center, the late 2008. And if you listen to my classes from 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, and 2015. For 8 years of Maayon Yisroel classes, there was a lot of Hasidic teachings being taught. Mashiach was not on the front burner. No, I don't think so. There was a lot of teachings of everything. Everything changed in the year 2015. And that's when the feverish excitement about Mashiach started. And I'll tell you why. Because 3 years before the 2015, in the year 2012, in the year 2013, I was waiting for the year 2015. And I couldn't I had such impatience. I was counting how many months left to 2015. When is it happening? When is it happening? When is it happening? I remember walking on the street sometimes from the shul to here. And it's not too far of a walk, but I used to count. Another 6 months. Because I knew very deeply that the year 2015 is a Mashiach year. And the world will change. When it came to 2015, I started talking about it very strongly. Why? What was it, 2015? Why was I excited about 2015? And you know what happened? 2015 came and Mashiach didn't come. 2016 came and Mashiach didn't come. And I felt really, really down. And I felt like I miscalculated and I was wrong. And I'm now looking at the last decade. Now we're a decade later. Literally, we're 10 years later, 2025. And I was not wrong. Everything shifted in 2015 and 2016. And it's exactly what was predicted, connected to this week's Torah portion. I'm going to do this very brief. There is a teaching from Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, Balatanya, in the books Mamare Admar Azak and Akatsarim, in the short discourses of the Alter Rebbe on the Parsha. No, it's not Mamare Admar Azak and Akatsarim. It's called Mamare Admar Azak and Al Parshas Hashavua. Ala Torah, Ala Torah, the special Memorim discourses he said on the Torah. This is in the first volume, in the last end of the first volume, Parshas Pekudei, our Torah portion. This is in in Exodus, the last Torah portion of Exodus. What's the subject matter? The Torah is giving us a narration of Moses giving an accounting to the Jewish people about where all the gold and silver went from the donations. This was the first Jewish contribution campaign, drive for money. They used the monies, and Moshe felt that he has to give the Jewish people an exact Excel sheet where he would tell them exactly where every dollar went. No one should think that anybody was becoming rich off these donations. A little bit like DOGE says we should do. We should have accountability where the money is going. Right? People are being put into jail because they evaded taxes so that we can take the money and support transgenderism in I don't know in which country. That's why the first priority of the United States. And that's why someone should sit 20 years in jail because he made some shtick with his taxes. Okay, it's not okay. But if the money is going for these things, why should he really pay his taxes? The money that is needed in the United States for a lot of very, very important things. Right? But in any case, so Moshe was giving an accounting on every dollar, line for line, where it went. So first he says how much came in. So the Torah says so much silver, so much gold, and so much copper. When it comes to silver, the accounting that he gives is that there were 100 kikar of silver. 100 kikar of silver is 100 talent of silver. Each talent was an amount of silver that weighs 3,000 coins, 3,000 shekalim. So 100 kikar equals 300,000 shekels. 100 times 3,000. Again, every kikar of silver is 3,000 coins. The weight of 3,000 coins. So 100 of them is 300,000 coins. How many Jews people were there in the desert that were now again the silver was given not voluntary. The silver was the only donation that everybody had to give, a half a coin. Not a half a coin, they didn't break a coin. They gave like a $50 coin, a half shekel coin. A beka. Beka was a half a shekel. That was the amount they gave. And through those money, they counted the Jewish people. There were 600,000 Jews. So if 600,000 give a half a shekel, how many whole shekels do you have? 300,000. So that's what it was. 100 kikar, Moshe says. That's the collection. However, in addition to 600,000 Jews, there were 3,550 Jews. Extra. So the total amount of Jews is 600,000, 605,550. Let me take my calculator out for a second so I give you the right number here. Calculator. Oops, wrong one. I hate when these things, they fool you. Okay, here we go. No. Yeah, 3,550. So when these 3,550 Jews, in addition to the 600,000, gave their half a shekels, how many whole shekels do you have? So let's take 3,550 divided by 2. It's 1,775. So the Torah says the 100,000 that the amount of silver that there was 100 talents of silver plus some spare change. What was the spare change? 1,775 shekels were left over, compiled from the 3,550. That's the spare change. Fine. Moshe was giving an accounting on every dollar that he spent, where he spent it. So he says, well, the 100 talent of silvers, they had 100 sockets. Each socket weighed a full talent. At the bottom of the temple, there were 100 sockets, silver sockets. They were the support for the temple. That's where the 100 kikar of silver, the 300,000 coins of silver went. Now you're left with 1775. So the Torah says, Moshe made them, they were made into hooks for the pillars. Around the temple, there was a courtyard. They were like pillars. Each pillar had a curtain hanging on it. In order to hang the curtain, there was a little silver hook. Those silver hooks, which were quite a lot of them, was melted out of 1,775 shekels were melted into that. That's the verse. Now it's a famous verse because there is a unique. Why do I say it's a famous verse? For those who come to shul and listen to the Torah reading, you'll notice it. Because if the Balkore is a fancy Balkore who reads with life you'll hear that he does a very strong trup. That means the song is strong on the word Vesa Elef. It goes, Vesa Elef. It's like it's an announcement. And the name of that musical note is called Azla Geresh, which is not such a common trup used in the Torah, and whenever it's used, people like to sing along with it. It's like it's one of those ones that people, because it's a unique one. On Yom Tif, we have one of those. Everybody goes Ka'ela. It's almost by all the days of Pesach and Sukkot. In the Musaf reading, shuls always do it. It's like suddenly the whole shul wakes up and everybody, and people sing along at that part. It's called an Azla Geresh. That's the name of this musical note in Hebrew or in Aramaic. So the Medrash says there is a story behind this. What's the story? The story is that Moshe did not remember. Suddenly he blanked. He was doing the accounting and all the people were standing and listening and they wanted to get him. If he stole some money, they were waiting to get Moses to see if he, like Jews are, people are giving contributions. They want to make sure you're using the money. They were waiting to get Moshe. And Moshe blacked out for a minute and he didn't remember what happened. He knew where he used the 300,000 coins, which were the 100 kikar, but for a moment he missed where he put the 1,775. And he got scared because he was afraid that people would say, that's where you pocketed the money. But then so a heavenly voice came out. Moshe forgot, and a heavenly voice from heaven came out and said, and the 1,775, they were made, and that's why God announced. So I'd like to give you an explanation why Moshe forgot those 1,775. You know why? Because those 1,775 are alluding to the time of the exile. That the exile is going to last for 1,775 years. That's the duration of the exile, the galut. Who says that? The Alter Rebbe. 1775. Now we'll understand why Moshe forgot it. Because exile means that we get forgotten. Exile is called forgetfulness. We say to God, why are you forgetting us in exile? Exile means we forget God, God forgets us. It's a time of forgetfulness, time of darkness. So Moshe forgot that 1775. So first of all, what's the idea that 1775 is exile? Before we start doing calculation, because you're going to ask, this exile that we're in right now is already 1,950 years, 50-something years that we're in exile. And the Alter Rebbe says, from this verse, it's going to be 1775. So first of all, what's the relationship of the 1775 to exile? So the Alter Rebbe says, the Zohar says that the meaning of whenever there is such a trup, there is that musical note, which means Azla Geresh. Azla Geresh in Aramaic means Azla, she went, Geresh, banished. It's referring to the Shekhinah and the Jewish people that are banished from the Holy Land, banished from our home to exile. So whenever you see an Azla Geresh, there is some hint in that trop to the exile. That's an exile energy. Maybe that's why it speaks to us. It wakes us up because it's talking about our exile. And this particular one, the Alter Rebbe says, is hinting to when Mashiach is going to come. Because the duration of the exile is going to be 1775 years. Now, the Alter Rebbe says we have to count when, and the Alter Rebbe does a actual prediction about when Mashiach will come. And he says that Mashiach will come in the year 1843. The Alter Rebbe passed away in the year 1812. So he was predicting Mashiach coming in about 32 years after his passing. How does he get to 1843? Because he says like this. It's 1775 years from when the destruction of the temple. When did the destruction of the temple take place? In the year 68 BC. No, AD. In the year 68 AD. Now, if you look in Google, they will tell you year 70. The Alter Rebbe's math is 68, and a lot of authorities believe that it happened in the year 68, not like others say that it happened in the year 70. So in the year 68. So from the year 68 to 1843 is 1775. Okay, so why should I be excited about 2015? That's because the year 2015 was the Hebrew year 5,775. Now, 5,775 is 1,775 years. Exactly that number, 1775. After the year 4,000. But who cares about the year? Good. So it's 1775 years. Again, that was the year Tafshin Ayin Hey, 5775, which was 1,700 years and 75 years after the year 4,000. But who cares about the year 4,000? The Hebrew year 4,000. The Hebrew year 4,000 is, by the way, I'll tell you right now. Plus is the year 240 in the Gregorian calendar, the year 240. So from the year 240 until 2015, do the math. 2015 minus 240 is 1775. So but you realize it's the Hebrew year 4,000 plus 1775. Yeah, but who said, why am I getting excited? The Alter Rebbe doesn't say that. The Alter Rebbe says 1843. So I'll tell you why. Because I have a strong sense already then, and I'll prove it to you now. And I gave a lot of classes on this. I'm just repeating it now for just to bring this back to your attention, is that the Alter Rebbe is not wrong. The Alter Rebbe is a prophet. He said 1843. If you look at that discourse that I'm referring to about the Alter Rebbe's discourse, he makes a whole calculation that really, listen to this, really the exile, he goes through spiritually, the dynamics of the world, And he explains, amazing teaching, that the exile should have started in the year 4000. Basically 172 years later after it really began. The exile was supposed to, based on, let's understand something, based on God's clock, the exile was supposed to start in the year 4000. However, the unholy managed to creep in and bring about the exile earlier than it was supposed to. And this is hinted to in the fact that God already said this is going to happen. God says the snake is going to bite you on the heel. He tells Adam, the snake, Yeshifcha Akev, is going to bite you on your heel. According to the Alter Rebbe, based on the Zohar, it means Akev spells Kuf Ayin Beis. 172 years earlier than you were supposed to go to exile, he's going to take you into exile already earlier. He's going to snatch away from you 172 years that was supposed to be temple period. The unholy is going to steal those 172 years. And I'm not kidding with you. If you'll learn, I'm not going to go through it right now because it's late. But the Alter Rebbe goes into a whole long explanation in the discourse why the exile was supposed to start in the year 4000, but in reality it started 172 years earlier. And he says, since it started 172 years earlier, so we begin counting from 172 years earlier, and you count to 1775, and it lands in the year 1843. So I was always bothered. If the Alter Rebbe really wanted to tell us that the exile is going to end in 1843, if that's really what he meant, so he could have cut half of his discourse. What is he giving you? A whole discourse. It's supposed to start 4000, but it's not started earlier. You have a simple idea. You have a simple formula. You're predicting that Mashiach is going to come in 1843. So say simply, the exile began in the year 68, count 1775, and that's your date. And that's what he says in the end. But before that, he makes a whole long calculation to explain that it's supposed to really start at 4000. That told me, again, this was my own conviction, that what the Alter Rebbe really knew the possibility. One thing he knew for sure is that exile is 1775 years. And he knew it was really supposed to start in the year 4000. But he didn't want to say that. Why didn't he want to say that? Because the Alter Rebbe was saying it's not fair. If the 1775 years are going to start from 4000, that means we did 172 years that is not even in the count. And that's not right. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe was trying to get it to start in the year 68 instead of starting in the year 240. That's what he wanted. But you see, he's the undercurrent of the entire discourse. The undercurrent of the entire discourse is from the year 4000. And therefore, already in 2012, I was learning this discourse again and again and again. I taught it here on a Thursday night, and we learned it, and I chewed on this, but I didn't speak that much. But as it came to year 17, when it came to the year 2015, I said everything's going to change this year. We wait Mashiach. I spoke about it. You can go back to my classes then. This was like a phenomenal year. I was going crazy on this, and I was so anticipating. And the year came, and the year went, and there was no redemption. And you believe my heart sank. But the Alter Rebbe, you have to learn him well. You can't just learn him superficially. The Alter Rebbe explains what happens in the 1775 years. In the 1775 years, the Shekhinah is in exile. Shekhinah in exile means the life force of the world is being usurped. That's what it means, the Shekhinah is in exile. It means that divine energy is going to waste. It's flowing into the sewage. That's what it means. It's enlivening the darkest elements of the world. After 1775 years, the Shekhinah starts to exit the exile. at the end of 1775. 1775, he doesn't say the redemption is going to happen in 1775. He says after 1775 years, which initially he predicted for 1843. But as I'm telling you, the undercurrent of the Maimer was saying that it's going to happen in 2020. It comes out to 2015. That's the end, that's the amount of time of exile, which means 2016 starts the redemption. And what happens? The Shekhinah goes out of exile. And the Alter Rebbe says, it's hinted to in the next words of this week's Torah portion. It says, what did he do with the 1775? Asavavim la'amudim. He made hooks for the pillars. The Alter Rebbe says, you know what those hooks for the pillars are? Spiritually? The hooks, the Torah uses the word vav. A vav is a pipeline. Amudim are the two channels through which prophecy comes from. The Alter Rebbe explains that Moses' prophecy, Moses, the biggest prophet, received this prophecy through two channels called Netzach and Hod. Victory and glory. These are the two channels. In the Holy Temple, there were two pillars. One was called Yachin and one was called Boaz on the front of the temple. And those were the spiritual conduits from where prophecy came to the world. Moses received this prophecy from these two channels. The Alter Rebbe says, Gevald, when Mashiach will come, all Jews will be prophets and everyone will be receiving prophecy through these two channels. And that's the meaning. After 1775 years, the Shekhinah will go out of exile and she will begin downloading prophecy, which is the messianic revelation, to everybody. Everybody will have the revelations of Moses. That's Vavim Lamud. Okay. Comes out that 1775 is darkness. And the work that, and the meaning is that the 1775 years of darkness, they produce the revelations that are going to happen afterwards. What did he make with the 1775? What does the exile produce? The exile itself produces the prophecy, the godly revelation that's going to be in the days of Mashiach. It's not in vain, the exile. The exile produces that light. After 1775 years, which is 2015. So what happened? So you have to look. So in 2015, the current president, Donald Trump, came down the golden escalator in Trump Tower and announced he's going to run for president. Everybody laughed at him. Everybody thought he's nuts. Everybody thought he was literally a buffoon. And believe me, it's not Donald Trump who made himself president. It's God Almighty himself who went to battle against the forces of darkness and literally eviscerated them and made Donald Trump president for a divine purpose. What's the purpose? DOGE. The complete shutdown. And you know what happened? In 2016, the year that is the year that the Shekhinah starts going out of the exile, he actually won the election. And what happened? He didn't make yet. They fought him like they've never fought anybody. And in 2020, they managed to push back on him winning the election. Whether they took it rightfully or whether they stole it. You know what my opinion is, but whatever. It's the unholy last chance trying to stop it. And now in 2024, he takes it back. This time he comes with Elon Musk, and the job is getting done. So we have a 10-year period that the entire world shifted everything. It's shifting. Of course, Mashiach is not here yet in the literal sense that we say, oh, we have a temple standing. But the universe changed. The entire trajectory of the world flipped over. The cesspool was closed. That's what happened. There's no more leakage of energy going into the cesspool that was till now taking and stealing and robbing and taking the energies, diverting the energies of the world for the darkest things. That shut down. This week's Torah portion. And I knew always the Alter Rebbe said something, it's right. But when I didn't see it then, and I was looking back 10 years, and today in the morning, I was in shul, And I was given the aliyah for Kohen. I had my aliyah. And the Balkore sitting next to me, Laser Klein, he's a nice member in the community here, was the Balkore. And after we finished reading, he comes over to me and he says, you remember you were saying a lot of Torah on Vesa Elef, Shva Meos, about Mashiach. And I said, it happened. And he looked at me and says, what? And I said, that's when Donald Trump announced his presidency. And take a look, everything flipped over. And he said, you're right. It's unbelievable that everything changed. Everything flipped over. We're watching. If you're looking deeper into what's going on, it's unbelievable. And the good news is not going back anymore. Finished. The best they can do right now is burn Telsa stations, and some of them are running out of the country to move elsewhere. And you haven't even seen the beginning of the garbage that's going to be exposed. The garbage that's going to be exposed, that has been the corruption and that has been going on. See, the biggest weapon is just the truth. The truth is going to make the evil become so abhorrent that no one is even going to want to look at it anymore. It's just going to become, just like you're watching all these powerful news media stations, they're losing their people by droves. Because people have been seeing, people become more and more clear. They've just been lying to them. The whole thing is just a fraud. And you're seeing it more and more and more. They're still holding on and trying to whatever, but they've lost the power already. It's over. They're being shut down completely. Iran is teetering now because they're not getting any money. Trump is warning them that if they're not going to denuclearize, and he's giving them 2 months, he might attack them militarily. Their coin, their currency is like $1 million to $1. They're plummeting. And it's not sustainable. They're going to crash soon. Iran is going to come down. I don't even know if it's going to need to be, if we're going to have to fire one missile. Just the financial tariffs or whatever it is that Trump is putting on them is going to take them down completely. They were in a bad position in the first place. Turkey is about to go up in flames. That guy is like a wicked, this Edridgen, whatever his name, Edridgen. And then now there's millions of people protesting. That's going down. Trump is trying to woo Putin away from China and get him to join. And together they're going to make, I don't know if Putin will join or not, but the Abraham Accords. Trump just announced today that so many more countries are lining up to join the Abraham Accords. It's unbelievable. It's incredible what we're watching. And we also heard that Egypt is willing to take 500,000 Gazans. So, you're literally watching, all these things that were stuck, and they weren't going anywhere for all these years, they're beginning to open up now. The Shekhinah is exiting the exile. We also have to exit the exile together with the Shekhinah. So let's do it joyfully, triumphantly, happily. And let's get ready. We're ready to pop the champagne. Bezrat Hashem. The schus of the Rebbetzin, whose birthday is tonight, would be a beautiful, happy birthday present for the Rebbetzin. Thank you for joining.